All right, so we're going to still be talking about solving with rational numbers, but now we're just adding in the inequalities section here from Chapter 3, Section 4. So make sure you're using the correct notes, either from the packet or that you've printed out yourself, and we'll get started. If you remember, solving with inequalities is exactly like solving with equations, except for you just have to remember that you need to flip the inequality when you multiply or divide by a negative on both sides. So other than this small rule, everything else is the same. The nice thing with rational numbers is that means you can still use the common denominator strategy that we talked about in the last lesson. So in this case, I'm looking at decimals, and they all only go to the 10th place, which means the common denominator is 10. So if you want to write them as fractions, you absolutely can. Or you can just multiply the whole thing by 10 to start off with. But either way, once they all simplify, you're going to end up with negative 5x plus 23 is less than or equal to 18, because 10 is a positive number. Yes, we multiplied on both sides, but it's positive. And now from here, this will look like our last unit, where we subtract 23 on both sides. And we end up with negative 5. And since it's adding and subtracting, yes, it's a negative, but the sign stays the exact same. We end up with negative 5. Now we will divide by negative 5. Oh, now since we are dividing, so we're dividing, and we've got a negative on both sides here, then we need to flip the sign. It's going to become greater than, and then x by itself, negative 5 divided by negative 5 is positive 1. So x is greater than or equal to positive 1. If I want to graph this on a number line, we then put a filled in dot at 1. And x is larger, so we're going to color in all the points that x could be, which is all the numbers larger than or equal to 1. Now here we have an interesting thing where we have fractions with decimals in them. Now here we have 3 divided by negative 0.75 is greater than 2m over 0.25. Now there's lots of different ways to do this, but I'm going to continue to use the common denominator because I know that this 0.75 is 3 times 0.25. It helps when I think about like quarters and money. And it's got a negative. So I know that if I multiply 0.25 by negative 3, I'll have a common denominator to cancel out. So here's what I will do, is I will say multiply this fraction by negative 3. Now, I'm multiplying by a negative, but it's on the same side of the inequality, so I'm not flipping the sign because it's on the same side of the greater than sign. So then I have 3 over negative 0.75 is greater than negative 6m over negative 0.75. And now I'm going to multiply by that common denominator. Negative 0.75 times negative 0.75. It's great, these cancel, but I did multiply by a negative on both sides, and so then I'm going to have to flip the sign here to a less than sign, and I end up with 3 is less than negative 6m. Oh, gotta be careful there, I almost crossed out all my negatives where I'm just crossing out the ones here and here, since they are the same. Now I am going to divide by negative 6 to get m by itself, and oh my goodness, we have division, and we have a negative on both sides. So once again, we flip the sign again, and we end up with our final answer. We're back to a greater than, negative 1/2 for 3 divided by negative 6, and m by itself since we finished solving. If I was going to graph this on a number line, I would use an open spot at -1/2, so it's halfway between -1 and 0. It's open because we don't want m in the set. M is not a number that could be used. M is less than, so all the numbers that could be m are all these ones that are less back here. And then this is -1/2 in the center. If you have any questions, please ask them in the comments, or you can make an appointment over Zoom in the calendar on Google Classroom. I'll talk to you later.